Welcome to this explainer. Go ahead and take a deep breath with me. Today, we're stepping into a story of profound pain, undeniable courage, and the absolute enduring power of truth. We're going to explore a life full of deep struggle and discovery, and we'll break it all down right here. It's the ultimate question, isn't it? How exactly does a man with no army, no weapons, and literally no money change the future of an entire nation? Picture this: a quiet man in simple white clothes, walking slowly under the blazing Indian sun. He doesn't shout, he's not raising his fists, and yet the entire world is holding its breath, watching him. This isn't some Hollywood script, it's a true story. To really grasp how he pulled this off, let's map out the massive scope of his journey. We're starting back in 1869 in a small coastal town in western India called Porbandar. He's born into a country that isn't free. It's firmly under the thumb of the immense British Empire. Over the next few decades, this journey takes us across oceans to London, deep into the heart of South Africa, and finally back to India, culminating in the liberation of a nation in 1947. Section 1. A Shy Boy's Beginning. The Quiet Origins of Mohandas Gandhi. Before he was a world leader, he was just Mohandas. He wasn't some child prodigy or brilliant student. He was completely average. At just 13 years old, his family arranged for him to marry a girl named Kasturba, who would end up quietly staying by his side for the rest of his life. And there's this profound emotional contrast when we look at his life. On one side, we have young Mohandas. He's literally afraid of the dark. He's terrified of public speaking, and he feels incredibly small and ordinary. But then look at the other side, the Mahatma he becomes, a fearless leader defying an empire, commanding the world's attention. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around the fact that they're the exact same person. I mean, how do you get from that terrified kid to a fearless historical giant? Well, the transformation starts with some really quiet, devastating pain. When Mohandas was 15, his father got very sick. Mohandas was there, caring for him night after night. But one evening, he stepped out of his father's room for just a brief moment. And in that tiny window of time, his father passed away. Mohandas carried that deep, heavy guilt for the rest of his life. And around that very same time, his own first child was born, only to live for a few days. The grief in his house was just suffocating. The silence was heavy. Life was teaching this young man some truly agonizing lessons about loss and what it really means to be present for the people you love. Section 2. Seeking Identity in London. The Mask of an English Gentleman. Fast forward to 1888, and his family sends him off to England to study law. London is cold, it's gray, and for an 18-year-old Indian kid, it feels like an entirely alien world. He tries so desperately to fit in. He buys these expensive English clothes, he takes dancing and French lessons. Basically, he's wearing a mask. But he stayed grounded by 3 sacred promises he made to his deeply worried mother before he crossed the ocean. No eating meat, no drinking alcohol, and no being with another woman. He kept those promises. And more importantly, behind that fancy English mask, he started to read. He dove into the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, and works by Leo Tolstoy. Through these texts, it clicked. He realized he didn't need to fake being someone else. He just needed to discover who he actually was. But the universe definitely wasn't done testing him. He comes back to India in 1891, only to find out his mother has died. The heartbreak is just immense. He tries to get his career going as a lawyer, but he steps into the courtroom and completely freezes up. He can't get a single word out. He has to sit back down in total shame, feeling like an absolute failure. But here's the thing. Those quiet moments of intense shame, they were actually forging him. Section 3. The Spark in South Africa. The cold night that changed history. This brings us to a massive turning point. In 1893, he takes what he thinks is just a quick one-year job in South Africa. But on a train ride, he gets thrown off a first-class carriage purely because of his race. He's left shivering all alone on a dark, freezing station platform. Now, he could have just fled back to the safety of India. But instead, he chooses to stay and fight. And out of that one choice, he develops his core philosophy, Satyagraha. It basically translates to truth force or soul force. The method here is absolutely crucial to understand. You resist unjust laws, yes, but you do it entirely without violence. You accept the punishment with such overwhelming dignity that your suffering actually changes the heart of your enemy. And remember that one-year job? Yeah, it turned into 21 years. For over 2 decades in South Africa, he weaponized this truth force. He organized peaceful marches, he led protesting workers, he went to prison time and time again. And through it all, he learned to live super simply. making his own food, giving away his possessions, calling it an experiment with truth. And Kasturba was always there, standing strong in her own quiet way. Section 4, leading a nation to freedom. Returning home to shaken empire. So in 1915, at 45 years old, Gandhi finally comes back home to India. But before trying to lead anyone, he spends time traveling in third-class train carriages. He sits with the poor, with the farmers, really trying to understand their deep fear of the British system. He successfully proves his peaceful resistance first with the indigo farmers in Champaran, but by 1930, Gandhi was looking for a simple, highly symbolic act that ordinary people could instantly rally behind. And he found it in salt. It was a basic daily necessity totally controlled and taxed by the British. His strategy was so simple but utterly brilliant. Step 1, walk 240 miles to the sea with a growing crowd of thousands. Step 2, bend down and pick up a handful of salty mud, literally making salt illegally. And step 3, shake the British Empire to its core. It was a crystal clear message: this land is ours, and we are no longer afraid. The British response was incredibly swift. Over 60,000 people were arrested. 60,000, including Gandhi himself. But honestly, it didn't matter anymore. The illusion of colonial control was officially shattered, and this massive movement of defiance simply couldn't be stopped. Section 5, the darkest days. Sacrifice, heartbreak, and a divided nation. Freedom, however, was going to demand a devastating toll. In 1942, Gandhi launches the Quit India movement, basically telling the British they need to pack up and leave immediately. Predictably, he and his wife are thrown in prison once again. And then, profound tragedy strikes. In February 1944, Kasturba gets very ill in prison. Gandhi sits right beside her, just like he once sat beside his father, holding her hand. But this time, he is fully present. She dies right there in his arms. The grief is bottomless, and he slips into a very long, very heavy silence. And the heartbreak only compounds from there. When independence finally becomes a reality on August 15, 1947, it comes at a terrible, terrible cost. India is violently divided into two separate nations, India and Pakistan. Millions of people are uprooted and forced to move, and hundreds of thousands die in horrific violence between Hindu and Muslim communities. Gandhi doesn't go out and celebrate. Instead, he fasts and prays completely alone, calling the independence of his country the darkest day of his life. And his relentless, uncompromising push for unity ultimately costs him everything. Just a few months later, on January 30, 1948, he walks into a garde in Delhi for evening prayers. A man steps out of the crowd and fires 3 shots. Gandhi falls, and his very last words are a gentle, quiet call to God. He dies at 78, leaving behind a completely stunned and grieving world. Section 6, 3 lessons for today. What this quiet man teaches us now. So, looking back at the incredible scope of this story, what can we actually take away for our own lives today? Well, first, truth has real power. Not the loud power of a gun, but the undeniable power of a life lived honestly, even when it really hurts. Second, change is agonizingly slow. Gandhi worked for decades, went to prison, and failed so many times, but he just never gave up. And third, and I think this is the most personal one for whatever journey you're on right now, you do not need to be great to begin. The man who brought down an empire started out as a terrified, average kid who was afraid of the dark. He just kept choosing courage, one tiny step at a time. I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful thought from Albert Einstein regarding Gandhi. He said, "Generations to come will scarcely believe that such a man as this one, ever in flesh and blood, walked upon this earth." It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What small step of quiet courage are you capable of taking today? Thank you so much for walking through this explainer with me. Keep learning, keep moving forward, and I'll catch you for the next story.